with you. Grateful to be here with Brett Queener. You'll never guess, it's just coincidence, but he's the managing director of Bonfire Ventures. So with our SC camp, summer camp, we've got someone from Bonfire Ventures.
We thought it was a good
Brett?
name.
I know.
We take investors' money and we set it on fire.
There we go.
That's why it's called Bonfire.
There we go. Well, grateful to have you, Brett. Brett came in from Santa Barbara and joined us here today, so we're grateful to have him. Brett, you have an impressive resume. And I know we're here to talk about customer success, but I got to just touch on your career a little bit. Is that all right? Start off?
Sure.
Okay, so Brett started off at one of the two iconic tech companies, first Siebel Systems, and then went to the enemy, actually, Salesforce.
Yes.
And has done everything from field operations to product, owning sales, success. You've done everything.
I've done a really good job of failing upwards at fast-growing companies.
I was gonna ask you about that. I'm gonna come back to that because I love that statement, and I think that's important. But maybe let me just ask you, how was it working for, again, two iconic CEOs, Tom Siebel and Mark Benioff? What was your experience? What did you learn from them?
It was tough. I'll spend more time talking about Mark.
Okay.
I think part of the reason of going to Salesforce is that Tom and I didn't get along, and then I spent 3 to 4 years making sure that Siebel Systems died in the market.
There you go.
I would probably speak more to Mark, right? I think he is, because he's such a showman and such a product marketer and such a presence, it's sort of hard to underestimate sort of his operational chops. So in his ability to sort of paint a vision of where a market should go and really create fascination within the customer base. Like if you really think about customer success and you really think about Benioff and you really think about Salesforce, you think about Dreamforce. If you've ever been to a Dreamforce, it makes no sense. You go there, and this is a company that has a metadata customization platform with APIs and integration, and the applications are moderately usable. But people are gaga, and they're super excited, and there's a movement, and they're trailblazers.
Yeah.
And if you think about what Salesforce did, and this is what I think we all try to do if you're in leading success in your organization, and it's hard, which is, can you take your buyer, a class of people that feels sort of downtrodden or not successful, and then in working with you, do they associate their success with their relationship with you? Because if you think about Siebel, that was the on-premise world. That software was shipped in CDs. It was hard to deploy, et cetera. And if you were in sales ops or rev ops, you were kind of like Toby. You were kind of, the HR in the office. You weren't respected. You were stuck between business and IT. You had no power and control. And if you think about what the cloud and the metadata platform and what Mark did was he gave power to these people. So they could go customize, they could go deploy, they could become champions. Now, good luck trying to hire a VP of RevOps for less than $200,000. But those people associated their success with Mark and with Salesforce. And he did an amazing job of identifying them and just championing them.
Yeah.
And he created a movement. And that movement took a company that when I worked for, when I joined, had less than $20 million, less than 12 reps, and CIOs who were like, I don't understand this on-demand model, to a company that's worth, a couple $100 billion.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And Dreamforce, I think, is this week, right?
It is.
And you were there for the first one, is that?
I ran the first one.
Ran the first
Yes.
one, right here.
Yes.
The guy who ran the first Dreamforce. That's crazy.
We didn't have any money.
Yeah.
I remember because somebody took somebody's bag and I had to tackle the person. We couldn't afford security back then. Remember, like in the early days of Salesforce, we didn't raise a lot of venture because people thought we were crazy. And we ran our own data centers.
Yeah.
There was no AWS, no Google Cloud. So we had to use our own capital to build our own data centers to do this crazy thing called cloud.
That's crazy. You mentioned that through this time, I mean, again, you went from, if I remember right, field ops to operations for all of Salesforce, and then you went into more of a product role with Service Cloud, Data.com, and Marketing Cloud. You helped with the acquisition of ExactTarget.
Yes.
So some significant evolutions and eras within Salesforce. And you said that you failed forward.
Yes, or upward, yes.
Upward. Forward, upward. What does that mean? And what are the lessons that you would give to these leaders in that regard?
I think working in software companies is hard.
Yeah.
And the reality is, it's hard for us to admit it, that 90% of them are kind of irrelevant. They're not really going to make a giant impact, right? And often people, when they're thinking about where they choose to go work, what I always say is, you often will see like this beautiful boat, and you'll go on the boat, and it's a beautiful boat, and you worry about your role and the job that you have, and I'm captain of this shiny boat, and you go around the corner and you realize you're in a lake. The TAM is very limited, and there's no wind. So you and your beautiful boat are back there like creating your own wind so the boat will move.
Yeah.
And so it's very hard. And so, I was very fortunate and lucky to join two companies that were in basically turn around the corner and it's open ocean and there's gale force winds.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if it's a jalopy, right, and it's running out of gas, you just get on that boat. And then, within those, what I always did in my career was I always tried to, in any given job, make myself obsolete in a year. I was like, okay, here's a certain problem. I have this job. Let me go overhire people who are more qualified than me, try to give them this job as fast as possible. And then if there's another opportunity within the company, I will go do that.
I love that.
And so by failing upwards, which is, if you're in a ship that's in gale force winds with really good people, you're going to get over-promoted much earlier in your career.
Yeah. I love that. So you were also there during, we'll kind of segue into customer success. You were there during the early days of customer success at Salesforce, which in a lot of worlds, people give Salesforce for creating the role.
Yes.
How has it changed? Like, what was it like then, and how has it changed, do you feel like, now? Or has it? Do you feel like, now, just to give you more context, Brett, as a VC, is on 15 different boards right now.
Right.
So in addition to his long career as an operator and an excellent leader, he's now on the board of 15 companies, early stage investor, seed stage investor. So he has a great view of SaaS and technology and customer success. So maybe starting out, do you feel like that customer success from your perspective has evolved? Or do you feel like it's similar, it's kind of stayed the same from your perspective?
I feel like it's gotten worse.
Okay.
Let me lay out the reasons why. One, first reason, it's nobody in this room's fault. One, there was way too much overfunding of software companies.
Yeah.
So now in every category, look, when I was at Salesforce, there was Salesforce and like one other software solution in a category. Now there's like 200 within a category.
Yeah.
Okay. Two, it kind of leveled in the last couple of years. It's getting back to there where we gave too much money to people at too early, like $1 million in revenue, and we assumed that you had market fit.
Yeah.
And we decided that you should go and go for growth at all costs before you actually had a real sense of market fit. Third, I think I'm old, so it used to be there was like a technology layoff every 7 to 8 years. And sort of by the end of the 7 to 8 years, what I would call all the frauds and tourists would go home. The people that write blogs and their chapter thing, and then you go look at their job, and you're like, you haven't really done anything, but you spent a lot of time writing, right? We went like 16 years. So we had a lot of job hunting, and we sort of had this employee empowerment era. And so you have a lot of what I would call fraudulent leaders across go-to-market that just come in. And then on top of it, it's the software vendor's fault Where if you think about what is a software vendor supposed to do, hey, you're my champion. You've done a really great job of deploying my software. Let me put you on a grand stage about your playbook, et cetera, and let me give you credibility. And so then what happened was people would come into orgs like, I know how to use Gainsight, or I know how to use Catalyst, I know how to use Salesforce. And they become sort of masters of using tool, but we forgot about the mastery of the craft. Right? Customer success has nothing to do with tools.
Yeah.
Customer success is, did the customers who bought this to achieve a certain goal, did they achieve that goal? And how do we work with them and make sure that they do that? So we're building durable in revenue. It's not like, oh, I've automated my 16 plays. So I would talk to CSMs. I'm like, how often a week do you talk to customers? They're like, 3 hours a week. The rest of the week, I'm running my plays. I'm like, no. At Salesforce in the early day, we created the customer success org to go talk to customers, to go give them love.
Yeah.
We were far from perfect. When do customers love you? When you are fallible, when you make a mistake in that moment, you help recover. That's how you build these moments of endurance. Like, we didn't have all these playbooks and the rest of it. In the early days, we knew at Salesforce that those customers that used our API and integrated to other things renewed 3 times faster than other people.
Yeah.
And so we were like, let's go do that.
So do you feel like that we've over-engineered?
Well, I think...
And we need to go back to the basics?
Well,
or do you think that we're just focused on the wrong things?
Well, one is I think we've over-engineered. And two, I always think of... People always talk about customer success as the customer success org. And I'm always like, no. Like, customer success is like the mandate for the company. And what I will say to Mark, whenever we did our priorities, number 1 was always customer success. And what he basically said, in any job that you're in, I don't care what your job is, if there's some customer issue, you're gonna drop what you do. We were all in customer success. As opposed to, like, customer success is the customer success org's job.
Yeah.
And if things go wrong in customer success, it's their fault, which in my mind is laughable. So what I would say is, when I really look at orgs that have retention or expansion or customer apathy problems, it's rarely, oh, the customer success org's got, I mean, yes, there are orgs in customer success that aren't run properly and the rest of it, but that's rarely the top 3 issues within an org. And so my hope is, and I'm seeing it in companies, at least the companies we work with early on, is for them to understand that, like, 1, you will not be a valuable software company if your customers don't love you. 2, the only long-term moat that a software company has, really, there's no technical moat.
Yeah.
People are like, I got these patents. I'm like, is customer love. Okay. And if you have a business that has bad NRR, it's just really hard to basically to build an iconic company. And you shouldn't raise venture.
Yeah.
And then if we get them to understand that, then we basically get them to understand that, are you focused on who your ICP is? Do you know who your ICP is? And is the brand or product promise you say you're building, does it live up to that?
Yeah.
1. 2, from a sales perspective, or how you go to market, or how you sell until somebody signs a contract, are you properly qualifying to qualify people out that's not going to be durable revenue? And are you setting the proper expectations? Like, what is it you're going to achieve and how hard is it to achieve it? And then 3rd, do we have the right success motion and economic model that matches our promise?
Yeah.
Right? You can't have a 20K ASP product that you say is self-serve, but then the product is super clunky and the success team somehow has to hire TAMs to make this work. The math doesn't work, right? And we have to map this. And then 4, have them understand the basic math of SaaS, right? How do we think about the cost of success? Which is, how much do you have to spend to build enduring revenue? At the top line, the way I think about it is, there's the magic number. And the magic number, if you all understand, is you take your gross margin and you multiply by your incremental ARR of a period divided by your cost of sales and marketing. Well, in the gross margin, we have to look at what is our cost of professional services and support. And if you have to throw a ton of free services and a ton of support, because your product is garbage, your gross margin is going to be low. That's not the success team's fault. Now, if you're running a services org, at least run a break even. Don't run a minus 40% PS group, right? And then we go to the cost of sales and marketing. Well, if there's $1 to spend in sales and marketing, what goes in there? All of marketing, all of sales, all of BD, and all of non-PS and support resources and success.
Yeah.
And you have to basically, the more you need to spend in success, because you're failing on those things I outlined, you have less money to spend in sales and marketing to go drive growth. And once they sort of understand that holistically, we can get down to have like a real sort of vulnerable conversation. And then it gives a room for a success leader to have that conversation.
Yeah, so what would you say, they're all top success leaders here, and if anybody here is in a situation where there isn't product market fit, and the product is crap, as you know.
You use that word. I've been trying not to curse because I'm in Utah.
I use
You
crap.
started to be careful. Okay.
Crap.
All right.
I know. I told all the speakers,
careful.
let's keep it. I'm
all
sorry.
this morning I was like, don't curse, don't curse, don't curse.
I didn't open the door for that. Sorry. Okay. The product is not good. And the team is doing their best to keep it all together. What would be your advice for a customer success leader in that situation? Where where you feel, maybe I've inherited a situation where sometimes I feel like it's a no-win situation. What would you do what would be the advice for a customer success leader in that situation?
Okay.
The G-rated one.
One
Just kidding.
would be get with the leadership team
Yeah.
and try to basically understand, like, there are people that walk into a room and there's like a doo-doo in the room and they're like, oh, do you smell that nice odor? And then there are other people that are like, look, there's a piece of poop in the room. We need to get rid of the poop, right? There's a difference, right?
Yeah.
Like if you
Point
ever watch Pulp Fiction, there was that Harvey Keitel character where they call him the fixer, and there was a dead body in the room. Like, he's amazing. He comes in, and what does he do? He gets rid of the dead body in the room. Like, that guy's amazing. So what I would say is, unless you're able to have a cross-functional conversation with your head of product, head of marketing and sales, and your leadership team, that why is it that we have these challenges, and are we ready to align around fixing these? I would leave. Customer success job is really hard regardless. You never get the level of respect that you should. If your job is hard, you have to hire people that are often in thankless jobs, and those jobs are hard, right? Nobody sits around every day to your success people is like, you're amazing, right? It's a hard job. And so if you work at a company where it's out of your control, that this product is missing the mark, and you are, what's the proper word to use? I would say, you're behind the 8 ball the second that contractor signed, and you're just trying to be the Band-Aid, leave. It's not worth your time. Because one, it's not worth your time, your job's not gonna be happy, and two, that company's not gonna go anywhere. So, like, everyone's time is precious. Like, there's an interesting thing, we work with founders. Often you would think with founders we invest in, et cetera, and you're like, keep going, keep going, keep going. But like, the weird thing about venture is, way you make money in venture is the law of power returns. Somebody makes a ton. And the worst part of that venture is those companies, SaaS, that are zombie companies and drag and drag and drag. But founders think they have to stay on, have to stay on and stay on. And I'll say with the founder, like, look, we might have just been wrong. Maybe this market opportunity wasn't great. Maybe we're off. Why should you spend the next 5 years of your career, go do this? Why should I spend the next 5 years of me supporting? Move on. That would be my advice.
Okay. As a VC, as a board member, how do you evaluate a company's customer success organization?
Sure. Well, remember, we invest at the seed stage.
Yeah. So
like,
they maybe have 2 or 3, but
well, so yeah, we invest we're a little conservative. We actually want like $500,000 to $1 million of revenue.
yeah.
We want like at least 10 customers we can actually talk to. We want first version of product in market, et cetera. And so there really isn't a success org. There's like one person, There's like 7 to 8 people. There's one like catch-all person who's doing success, and usually the founders are heavily involved in success. They're involved in everything. So what we're trying to evaluate is, first, back to what I think about customer success, back to like, if customers aren't gonna love this, the org we build doesn't matter. So the first thing we try to figure out, and it's hard, but we'll go talk to like 10 of their customers and peer target customers, which is one, who is this customer? Are there enough of them? 2, is this product solving a 5 to 10x improvement over what they're doing today? Because otherwise it's too hard,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
like if your product is moderately betterable and then we throw CSMs on it, et cetera, but then there's 7 options out there, and then the champion leaves and oh my God, I didn't use gems to understand the champion left, and it wasn't really that impactful to the org, and somehow it's the CSM's fault that the champion left and we didn't know, and like that's laughable. Like it's too hard. So those are the things, and then the question that I would ask is, if we sold 30 of these deals tomorrow, what does it take to deploy that customer successfully?
Yeah.
And what's the shape of that business? And then how do I understand and think about what is the economic model? What is the trade-off on product and success? If I think it's going after large companies and it's see a bear, shoot a bear enterprise, I am willing to spend more on success because I have a higher ASPs and it's more custom and people understand that. If it's a lower end product that's supposed to be really easy to deploy and self-serve, et cetera, then I can't throw bodies at that from a success perspective. So that's sort of how we evaluate it.
Yeah.
But out of the gate, when we deploy, we work very careful on the operational model for the first, we're trying to invest to get them to a couple million in revenue to build one integrated motion that works. And with every single founder, it's very clear they'll start up a model with them hiring salespeople, here's leads, and there's like one success person.
Okay.
And I'm like, you just want to fail? You mean your product is perfect? You understand what that is? So we'll work with them out of the gate to make sure they overinvest a little early in success because we don't really know.
Yeah.
And to learn and understand what the recipe is on the success side. And the other key thing that we'll do out of the gate is we'll make sure they don't over-specialize too early.
Yeah.
Don't come up with like, oh, I figured it out. I'm going to have an onboarding person, implementation person, a success and account manager, like, this giant baton passing game. It's like working at IBM where 7 people show up at a meeting and you need a moderator who doesn't work at IBM to figure it out. 2, I want to make sure that there's very clear SLAs from engineering and understanding, because I don't really know if engineering is very good at building quality product. And so making sure there's a very tight line between support and engineering and SLAs, and really looking at that, and then very tight alignment with the success team and the product team. Because at this stage, we're really doing a lot of discovery, right? And we really have to leverage this product team to be really key in the success team in conversation with product. Like, that's it? Nope, that's not it. That's the wrong customer, that's the right customer. And really sort of learn so that at the time that we raise 10 or $20 million, at least we have a belief or a recipe that if we're going to deploy dollars at, is going to yield a return.
Okay, great. I want to switch on the other end then and leverage your experience as a board member and all the other side of being in the boardroom, representing your functional groups at Salesforce and other locations. What's the honest and maybe tough advice that you would give for us as leaders preparing for and going into a boardroom to represent customer success? What do we need to know? What are the blind spots? And what are some of the things that you encourage these leaders to do in that experience?
Well, first and foremost, it depends on the level of vulnerability of your CEO.
Yeah.
Right? Because if your CEO is willing to allow you to paint a more holistic picture of why success is where it isn't and what isn't and what we need to go do about it, it's fine.
Do you think that most CEOs, so I'm going to insert this question, do you feel like most of the CEOs for the boards that you're on get customer success? And do most of the board members, your fellow board members, get it?
It's half and half.
Okay.
I mean, I think the challenge, those investors that are later stage and have seen companies that thrive and can grow into Series B, Series D, and go public, I think they understand. Earlier, not so much. Look, I think the dirty secret about customer success, and I would think as a success leader, your first job is to figure out how do we spend less dollars in success to deliver more success. Because if I, an investor, think that I can deliver amazing success without wasting money in that I can then deploy to sales and marketing to drive more growth and in more R&D, that's amazing. That's where we start from.
Okay.
And so then the question is how then, as a leader, do you come and present what do we need to do from a success perspective? And so my general guidance is often, like, what I'll say for success leaders is no different than any leader presents to a board. I want somebody who comes in and is able to lay out the land very quickly. What is going on with our customers? What are the core metrics? Are they happy or are they not? I don't care if you use red, yellow, green, if you use NPS or usability. Okay? Based on that level of happiness, let's not have any surprises. What do we think retention or expansion might be? Very matter of fact. And then I think the ones that I think are amazing who then say, here are the 5 reasons why. And the ones that are world-class is the ones that describe the reasons why that have nothing to do with how effective the success org is. The ones that have already talked to marketing, sales, and products, and we have a very honest conversation and say, 1, we've sold to the wrong ICP for half of our customers. And we can throw money and success at that, but we should have the discussion if we should let that revenue just go away, as painful that is, because we're wasting our time. We're not going to invest in more product for them. That's not the motion that I'm building for, et cetera. Second, we're setting improper expectations when we close these deals. And I've already worked with sales to outline those to make sure. Third, from a product perspective, we're not delivering on the promise of what we said. And from a product alignment perspective, you'll hear the product team speak around the roadmap to go do this. And then 4 is, okay, within my org, you can't just poke fingers at everyone else. Here's what we're doing well, here's what we're not doing well, and here's what I'm committed to go do.
Yeah.
And you outline what those objectives are, and you come back to the next board meeting, and you said, remember at the last board meeting, here's what we said. And here's what we said we were going to do, and here's what we did. Here's what went well, we're gonna do more of it. That one's checked off. Here's what's still struggling, what we're gonna go do, and come back. That's all boards wanna go do. Boards don't read the deck. They don't, I mean, most don't. They don't really pay attention. And they're like, oh, okay. And you just have to keep it simple, stupid.
Okay,
Yeah.
I love that. So yesterday, what I hear, we had a thought yesterday around CS leaders need to be business leaders first and bring the customer perspective into that and be experts. And it sounds like the art of the influence and telling the stories across the business is critical for these. Is that
Yeah.
you agree with that?
Like, I think the most successful success leaders influence the rest of the organization
Yeah.
closely, carefully, and effectively. As
Yeah.
opposed to like, oh, the customer success team is whining, we'll give them these, you hear this all the time. We need to build these features, we build the features, the product teams, we built the features, they're still not happy.
Yeah.
What do they want? Like, come on, people, this is not, is this what we're doing here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. I want to open it up to the audience. Any questions that you have for Brett? We have time for 2 or 3 short questions.
Hi, I'm Mariana from Brazil.
Yes.
I would love to get your thoughts about the predictability factor. I know that everyone is talking about recurring to revenue because we want to predict what we are going to have. But it's so hard to predict anything in this world. Like, everything is all, especially in this moment, we never, like, we have been trying to predict when the interest rates are going down, but they are not going down. We don't know when this is going to happen. So why are we still asking for so much predictability if we cannot do this in other areas of the economy or even in other, like, areas of our lives? I know maybe it's a philosophical question, but I would love to hear your thoughts.
Great question.
I think the need for predictability on success is our customer revenue base is like the foundation of our house. and then we want to grow on top of it. If all of a sudden the foundation of the house cracks and it's not what we thought it was, everything sort of falls like a house of cards. And if you are in a go-to-market tech software company, this has been very difficult for the last 2 to 3 years. I have companies that 175% NRR that went to like 65% GDR in 2 years. Because there was all this overbuying. Oh my God, that is a gut punch. I mean, economic, you're upside down, energy, you're upside down, et cetera. So I know it's hard, but if you think about if you work for a software company and a recurring revenue company, what is more important to understand what part of our revenue that we thought was recurring is actually recurring? So I understand it's hard. I think the challenge to some extent is how would you then actually go predict it? Because usage of your product is not an accurate predictor. The only real accurate predictor, but these aren't the conversations that sales have, our customers don't ever want to speak to ROI, is did the customer actually achieve the benefit that they set out to achieve? That's a hard set of conversations to have to really get to. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Hi, Brett. This
Hi.
is Omid Razavi from Success Lab. At my last job, when I was Chief Customer Officer, I noticed that a lot of our customers are buying our product for a variety of reasons, and some were not really good fit, and it cost us a lot more to support them, especially if we are one of the very AI-first products out there that we had to refresh our models and work very closely with their team. So I brought this question to the board member, and actually one of our board members was also a Siebel alumni.
Sorry.
And I brought up and said that these group of customers are costing us a lot. And some of them are expecting a lot more, maybe they were not sold right. And the answer I got was that your job in customer success is to keep the customers at all costs. As long as they're paying, you need to keep them. I wonder what your thoughts are about this statement. And this was a few years ago before the current economic change.
I mean, at a holistic level, I don't agree with that statement. Now, that being said, when you're earlier companies, and often companies will get excited about the big deal. You see this all the time. You started as a mid-market company and some large company wants to buy your product, but what you've sold them to some extent, you don't have the roadmap, you don't have the support, et cetera. Now, if in my mind, it is in your strategy that you want to serve companies like that, it's fine to deal with that pain if we think it's part of future ICP. But if we think this is not a customer or a model we plan to go support going forward, I think the reality is, we shouldn't support them. But I think what you should do is go back to your executive team and say, look, I have these resources. You want to minimize the amount of spend we want to do here anyways. Here are my priorities solving these. This looks like not one of these. What would you like me to do here? Right? And have that conversation.
That's great. That's great. I think we're
All done?
one more quick question.
Yeah.
Brett, my name is Michael. I'm from Responsive. I actually listened to your podcast with Christy and Josh the other day, and I'm just glad that you can curse on that podcast, even though you can't hear. So if you haven't listened to Unchurned, go check it out. At Responsive, I'll be vulnerable here. At Responsive, we're sitting at about 90% retention right now. It's good, but it's not great. We're trying to crack that next 2 to 5% over the next few years. And we're struggling with all these same challenges: ICP, habit formation, adoption. Sometimes the use case just evaporates. So I'm curious, Salesforce is somewhat of a unique example. You were there early, it was a first mover. So setting that example aside, perhaps one of the boards you're sitting on, can you share any examples of where you've seen a CS leader take a look at one of those dimensions, whether it's ICP or adoption, whether it's habit formation or something else, where they did crack a nut that helped them get 1 or 2% better in the overall retention from a cross-functional perspective.
And at 90, what is GDR versus NRR?
Our gross retention's about 90. Net retention is hovering just above 100, like 101,
Okay.
102.
All right. So, and you serve mid-market, SMB, or enterprise?
All three.
Okay. Okay. Well, 90% GDR is pretty damn good, right? If you think about that blend. It sounds like the bigger challenge that you have is there's not a meaningful upsell. There's not a meaningful upsell, cross-sell, et cetera, right?
Yes, and we are resolving that.
Okay.
In a pricing impact.
In terms of the example of what I have seen from a success leader perspective, I saw one that basically, in combination with the CEO, basically pivoted the entire business. I'll give you an example. I'm an investor in a company called Blueprint Health. It is software for the moment of care between patients and therapists. If anybody has been in mental health or has family members gone through mental health, the challenge there is, as a therapist, it's a horrible job. You measure success by somebody who doesn't kill themselves. And as a patient, there's no real data to make sure that you're actually seeing progress and you want to stay in it. They originally built a management care product and to deliver better therapists, so therapy could deliver better therapy to patients. The challenge is that 70% of therapists are at small and group practices and they're underwater and they don't want to be told to give better therapy. So initially they delivered their first $3 to $4 million in revenue selling to larger organizations. That was sort of top down and the therapist would go use it. But when we dug into the success stats and the success leader was like, it's not really that sticky. And so we really sat down and said, what are we going to do here? We actually pivoted the entire company and changed the product, went all in on AI to deliver, if you will, a mental health AI note taker focused at where 70% of the therapists are, which is small, et cetera. And those people every day are taxed all day, and then on the weekend they've got to write their notes down and put it in their systems or they can't bill. And basically said, we're moving from this very hands-on success model to we're doing everything product-led and sort of very light touch success exist. And that was all based at looking at the initial ICP and realizing that like this wasn't going to work. And we made the bold choice to basically just burn the ships and say, let's just bet the entire company from an AI perspective. Now that's easier because the company was at $3 to $4 million in revenue. It's a little earlier, but it can be done.
Great.
All right, I think we're out of time.
Yeah, I think we're done. Thank you, Brett, for your experience and wisdom and advice. Brett Queener, everybody, thank you.